call this meeting of the East Amwell Township Committee to order.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee has been provided by a notice sent to the official newspapers of the Township, posted to the Township website, posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, and filed with the Township Clerk as required by law on January 3rd, 2023. Mr. Dendis?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Here.
Ms. Ramsey? Here. Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Mayor Casper Bloom?
Here. Will everyone stand and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So looking over the announcements, a couple things. The East Amwell Township, we have a holiday lighting contest going on, and it's open until tomorrow. So if you've decorated your house and would like to submit it, you have until tomorrow to do so. And the other changes are end of the year Township Committee meeting will be on December 28th, but it's going to be held at 10 a.m. instead of 7 p.m. to help the staff out. And it should be a relatively short meeting. So before I move on to the open to the public, there was a recent tragedy here in East Amwell that I'm going to pass over to Tara to speak upon.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks
Tara.
very much, Jenna. On behalf of the entire Township Committee, I think we just wanted to send a note out to the Miller family, who, as Jenna mentioned, lost their entire family home in a tragic fire on Thanksgiving Day, which was truly awful. The Miller family is a staple in our community. Pete served as a Township Committee member for, I believe, at least 2 terms. Michelle Miller is the absolute face of the school. Whenever you walk into East Amwell, it is Michelle's beautiful, smiling, and welcome smile that welcomes you. So our hearts and our prayers go out to this wonderful family, to Michelle and to Pete, to their sons, Jack and Charlie, and to Pete's mother, Andrea. We also wanted to just mention a few words of thank you to all of the emergency responders who came to the aid of the Miller family on that tragic evening. So I know Amwell Valley, our own, and surrounding companies, we thank you very, very much. And again, our hearts and our prayers are with the Miller family. Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks, Tara. So now I'd like to, the meeting is now going to be open to the public for agenda items only. I will note, if you are here to discuss either the Rainbow Hill Preserve or our EMS service, they'll be open to the publics during that session, so you don't need to speak now for that. So we are open to the public if anybody would like to speak for agenda items only. Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close to the public?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the November 9th, 2023 executive and regular session minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Before we move on to special discussions, I'm going to touch on a couple things. I did note at the last township meeting, I had mentioned that we had some school safety issues on the agenda and that I had reached out to Mr. Miller, who is the Board of Ed president at East Amwell. I reached out to Mr. Stolowski and Mr. Capuano, and I said I hadn't heard back from them. As Linda knows, we switched to Outlook, and I have had difficulties with that. And as I explained to Mr. Miller and Mr. Capuano, their response went back to me in my spam, and I did not see it until after our township meeting. So I do want to apologize for that mistake. When I reached out, Mr. Miller wrote back and said, "We have a board meeting next week on the 14th and anticipate that there will be people at the meeting with the same questions. We anticipate having authorities at the meeting to answer the questions as well if they can. As you know, this is an active investigation, so we are limited in what we can say about any of this." I know myself and John and Mike attended that meeting in November. They did have law enforcement there. Unfortunately, they didn't list that on the agenda, so I'm not sure people were aware law enforcement was going to be there, but I thought the law enforcement there was great. The state police answered questions, Homeland Security answered questions. They said to reach out to them if we had anything else, and I have reached out to them and they've been very helpful, so I just wanted to make sure that was clear and everything. And then since I do usually do acknowledgements, for the month of December, I want to acknowledge the Township Committee. Because we've had a very busy year and we've done a lot of good work together. And I'm just going to go over a few things, and if anybody else remembers something that I forgot, which I probably have, feel free to jump in. One of the biggest things we did is we did not raise taxes this year or reduce services to our residents, so there was no tax raise from us. Another big one was members of the Township Committee found a grant to demolish the Kleinschmidt house, so that'll be no cost to the township, and that house will be demolished at some point and not be an eyesore or go into the nearby cemetery. We preserved land near the fairground on Frontage Road. We hired a certified CFO. We updated our email, so our email retention is within the rules and statute for the state. We obviously upgraded the video system and microphone system here. Our website is updated. We put better cameras at the Grit Yard and got hours there that are appropriate and are working. I think that's been really helpful. We also have opened the building for residents to use. Actually, right now, there's a Girl Scout meeting going on in the small room next door. We were able to fund the farmland preservation plan, which was again at no cost to our residents. We were able to find grants to do that from SADC and from the county. So we will have a farmland preservation plan, which is part of our master plan. We got $75,000 in grants to comply with stormwater ordinances. We passed a lot of stormwater ordinances, so we are in compliance with the state. And we also finally were able to secure the Landis Burial Ground, which is located in Ringo's, and it has one of the oldest headstones in Hunterdon County. So we were able to do that. And we also passed ordinances that the planning board had recommended to us as part of our master plan that helps to keep East Amwell rural. So I don't know if anybody had anything else they wanted to add, but we've done a lot. So good work, everybody. I think we did a lot of good things for our residents. Now, I'm going to jump quick before we go to special discussions and jump to our standing committee report for Marnie Stenson, if she wants to talk about the Environmental Commission.
My name's Marnie Stetson. I'm the East Amwell resident and chair of the Environmental Commission. And one of my duties as chair is to present to you all the year-end report of what we did this year. And I think it was a really busy, productive year for the Green Team, the Environmental Commission. And I would say our biggest success was the green scene that we held in April. It was designed to try and bring together community members to learn about sustainable living in East Amwell. We were able to, through a grant from Sustainable Jersey and also a grant of trees from the state, to give out 350 seedlings. We had electric car demo, we had the Northeast Organic Farming Association, AmeriCorps ambassadors, East Amwell Schools Environmental Club, representatives from Clean Community, and then also some local sustainable vendors, sustainable textiles, and some local farmers. So that was, I think, we had done a mini version of it in 2022. This was like a much grander scale, but I thought it was successful. People were happy and bonded over trees, which was nice. We also hosted a sustainability series through our meetings. And we had a resident come talk about installing geothermal. We had a monarch expert come and talk about habitat creation. And we had Mike Van Klaff come talk about removing invasives. The EC also worked with the state to bring pollinator habitats that are going to go into the jug handles between 202 and Wurtsville, and then also 202 and Old York. And they'll be put in by the state and maintained by the state, and they'll take care of whatever planting, mowing, anything that has to be done. So that I think will be beautiful and hassle-free for us. So that's exciting. Our ongoing project is trying to solve the mugwort infestation at the basin and the rain garden in Clausen Park. And to our good luck, mugwort is one of the most difficult invasives to get rid of. So we've consulted with lots and lots of experts, everyone with a slightly different approach, and so we're still working on that. We also ran the community well testing program in April, where residents could pay to have their well water tested. We provided feedback on the dark sky ordinance. We had several community cleanups, Amwell Lake, another near Cider Mill Bridge, various roadside cleanups, and the Delaware River cleanup. And then we also produced 2 newsletters. I just wanted to thank it's a really talented group of individuals, and I just wanted to thank everyone. Jenna, who serves on that committee, Greg Chacho, J.D. Grun, Erica Johansson, Jamal Kadri, Bob Lurie, Allison Kavchek, Leo Rommel, and Uzgur Tunselli. And lastly, just to make a plea, it is a really talented group of people, but we could use some more volunteers. I know we have a lot of people interested in environmental issues and living sustainably in our community, and I would just urge them to join the commission. And the reorg meeting will be January 22nd, and the commission will set its goals for 2024 then. Any questions?
No, thank you
No,
very much.
but thank you for everything, Marnie.
Before you go, I just
Yeah.
want to say thank you to you and the entire commission.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that you did, and I think it's greatly appreciated by residents.
Thank you.
I enjoyed serving on it with you guys, and I learned a lot, so thank you for everything. So I'm going to move on back onto the agenda to the special discussions now. The first is the Rainbow Hill Preserve, which is located at North Hill Road, as we're all aware. So just as a little background, I honestly became aware of this when I received an invite in my email to go to the dedication ceremony. So that's when I showed up and saw this great preserved area. But, you know, since that time, Dante and I particularly have been hearing from residents about some issues that are going on. I understand there's concerns about the number of cars there. There's concerns about parking. I'm sure there are people here to tell me about other concerns they have. The only thing we can work on now that we were able to do is we did install speed limit signs on North Hill Road, as well as a car counter, so we can have a good idea of how many cars are actually going up and down North Hill Road right now. But like I said, Dante's been doing a lot of work on it as well, so I don't know if you want to say anything before we open to residents.
Well, just that, I mean, having such open space is a great thing for the town, but we want to make sure that residents are happy with the way it's operating. And a number of residents had reached out to have some concerns about, as Jenna said, traffic, about, you know, the lot getting overflowed on the top of North Hill Road. And so because Jen and I were brought into this, you know, late just before the dedication happened, we wanted to make sure to open up a dialogue. So we've reached out to New Jersey Conservation Foundation, let them know about the residents' concerns, but we also wanted to start a dialogue today by having a listening session so that residents can come and tell us any concerns that they may have. We've heard from some folks already. They're welcome to speak again if they'd like to, but if folks haven't given us their input, we thought that'd be helpful. We plan on taking that back to NJCF. We invited the Conservation Foundation to come tonight. They had already scheduling conflicts, but they said they are interested in hearing what the concerns are. They've already indicated they want to be responsive to concerns. So, you know, with that said, we want to let folks come up and tell us what their thoughts and comments are.
Yeah, so if anybody would like to come speak, you just need to give your name and what town you live in. We don't need addresses. So if anybody has any concerns about Rainbow Hill they'd like to speak on now.
I live in Hillsborough. Why I'm standing at this meeting?
Sure.
Sure. Come up there.
Yeah, could just come sit in that chair and just put the mic close to your mouth so everybody can hear you.
So, my name is Brendan Fair. I live on Wirtsville Road in Hillsborough, and I live across the street from the Hillsborough section of the park. So, same as you guys, we didn't really know what the plans were for the preserve.
Can you bring the mic a little closer to your mouth?
We didn't,
Yeah, thank
we
you.
didn't know what the plans were until they started making a parking lot across the street from my house. So I've reached out to Hillsborough Planning, and they had no indication. So NJCF has not reached out to Hillsborough at all. And I spoke to somebody from that organization, and they didn't think they had to. So they think it's a county thing. So just I think you need to be aware of that. So Hillsborough now, they are aware that there are things going on. And the same thing, they're wondering why that this organization has started work, then reached out to the community. So I don't know if that resonates with what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I think it's
Yeah.
helpful, and again, I mean, that's why, since, this kind of forum and dialogue hadn't been established by anyone else, the Township Committee here in East Alamo wanted to do that, so that's why we welcome, your comments and thoughts, and said, stay involved, we'll have other sessions, at the next, Township Committee meeting, so,
Yeah. So what we're hearing now, and I have some insights into that organization, is that they're talking about building a road to the lake on the property. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I've not heard that. They have a plan on their website,
Yeah,
which I didn't see anything in there about that.
it's not on their website. Yeah. So I guess what's happening is it's a scope creep, and the interest in soliciting feedback from the community is an afterthought. That was our experience. My wife and I have met with people from the Conservation Foundation. We're actually members. We're donors to it. And when we asked about why, putting a parking lot across the street from our house, the response from the director of the Conservation Foundation, Allison Mitchell, was, well, why do you care if there's a parking lot across from your house? You park in your driveway. That's the kind of dismissal that we get. So I think the community needs to be aware. If you want this to be an animal preserve, which is kind of what we thought it was going to be, I don't know about you, but we have bears in our yard, all kinds of different animals come through. This will change it irrevocably. Then in Hillsborough, there's a master plan. There was no parking lot on the Hillsborough master plan on Wirtsville Road. So there's just layers and layers of people coming in here trying to change our community who don't live here. And I just think everyone needs to be aware of that. And since these are contiguous properties, and we need to work together.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, Dante, do you want to speak briefly about how large it is and how many counties and towns are
Yeah.
involved? Just to
Right,
give a
so
little
it's,
background.
I think it's about 1,100 acres, which is really large, so it's beneficial to have because of the Sarrowland Mountains and the sensitivity of the environmental resources there. But there are a number of different municipalities, a number of different counties, right? So there's Somerset, there's Hunterdon, there's your municipality, there's ours. So there are a lot of different jurisdictions and folks involved. I think it's a good idea that residents in whatever municipality, take an interest in the preserve and what the plan is for it, how it's to be used, and I think just like with the school, when the school issues came up, and Jen and I talked about that, we wanted to have a forum here so that even if we don't control what happens at the school, we want to make sure we're sharing the information that we have, and so I think we'll just, again, this is the beginning of a dialogue. Nothing is going to get decided here today, but if people are able to speak about what their concerns are, we're able to make sure that NJCF hears that, and we'll do our best to keep that dialogue in a constructive way.
People may not be aware, but the Hillsborough Country Club, I spoke with the people at Thompson Land, is about to be sold for preserved land. So that's
Okay.
the contracts are actually been executed, it just has to be, not executed, they have to be signed. So that's another, maybe a master plan, but that also bleeds into that.
Thank you.
Tracy was raising.
Yeah, Tracy?
Tracy Carluccio, North Hill Road. First, I want to thank you for having the meeting tonight, having this on the agenda for the meeting tonight. That's really important. And people are very upset on North Hill Road and also on Wirtsville Road. And having a place to come and talk about that is really important. And we see the Township Committee is, sort of standing up for us, and we greatly appreciate that. I'd first like to say I do live on the road, and I know that many of our residents are very upset. This has been a real sea change for the people who live on the road because it is such a narrow road. In most places, 2 cars cannot pass. much of the road is, all of it is residential, some of it is farmland, and much of the road is really not accessible by large vehicles. Now and again, you might have an Amazon truck come or a horse trailer going up to one of the farms on the road, but generally it's very low level of traffic and really just one vehicle at a time. So it's not only the volume of traffic that has increased and caused a problem, but it's also speeding, and that's why we appreciate you put that sign up. However, if you go on Google or if you're driving and you have an automatic system on your car that shows you what the speed limit is for the road, it does say it's 50 miles per hour on the road, and which is ridiculous. It's a residential road. Years back, the Township Committee tried to get many roads changed in the township through the state DOT. And some of them were successful and some not. And I would suggest that we should try to get the official speed limit lowered to 25 miles per hour for North Hill Road, because it is a residential and very rural road. The other thing that I really want to emphasize is, in addition to how devastating this has been for many people who live there, with cars parked on their lawn, unfriendly words being bounded back and forth amongst visitors and people who live there, and the road being blocked by cars parked because they're overflowing in the parking lot, which to me all really indicates poor planning on the part of the New Jersey Conservation Foundation. And I have read the stewardship plan. I see, that they have some ecological analysis that's been done. They did attempt to look at the property and make some plans. But looking at what I see there, I see that they're really emphasizing foot traffic and other sorts of vehicle access to the preserve. And there's overly wide trails and a whole bunch of them. And that is a very unique ecological location. For years, those of us who have lived on the road have spent a tremendous amount of time and love, pouring it onto that property. And the reason is because it really is special. It has a lake, it has a forest, it has meadows, and I really did not think that their ecological assessment in the plan was adequate, because I know there's a lot more than they even listed there. And that varied natural habitat is something that cannot ever be replaced once it's trampled down. And when you cover it over with very wide trails and a tremendous amount of traffic, and when you have visitors coming from all over with no stops, how are we ever going to make sure that what is called a preserve is truly a preserve? I think there should be an emphasis on reforestation and revitalizing the forest. That's one of their goals, but it's not at the top. At the top is recreational access. And we were never expecting that when all of us in our community, everyone here supported the preservation of that property. I see that Somerset County took part in the development of the plan, and New Jersey Conservation Foundation. And that's the last thing I really want to say. I'm concerned about the environmental impacts that are going on there, because I'm afraid we're going to lose the precious resources that it was preserved for, and there has been absolutely no community involvement in the development of that plan by New Jersey Conservation Foundation. You expect, there's sort of an implicit level of trust that a conservation foundation is going to be thinking of the community and the environment and the purposes that it was founded for and that people give money to it for. But I'm afraid to say that I have lost a lot of trust in that foundation. And my trust has been eroded because of what I've seen them do there so far and the lack of any kind of community input. It has actually been an arrogant approach by having a dedication ceremony and not even telling anybody on the road they were going to do it. It was like we didn't exist. So that may sound a little petty to you, but to me it's just sort of a signpost of the lack of care and interest that the foundation has shown to the community, and I'm afraid also to the natural environment, which is my major concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Oh, and I think that the Conservation Foundation should come here and they should answer some questions. I couldn't hear if you said that was gonna
Yeah, well,
happen.
but right, just to be clear on that point, they were not able to come today because of scheduling, told me, but they said they will come. So we told them it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting as well.
Okay, well, in the future, we would like to have a sounding board, and we would like to be
Yeah.
involved in what's gonna go on up there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dave Stalen, Rainbow Hill Road, 32-year resident. My question is, what are their rights and responsibilities when they're making changes to the property? Building parking lots or doing other things? So it's great to have a dialogue, but we need to know what they're allowed to do on their own and what their responsibilities are in terms of making change to the property. I think it's really important, more than just a dialogue. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak on Francis?
Prevent the speed or lack thereof. Francis Gavigan, only 29 years in East Hamel. I got a call from a resident who wasn't able to be here tonight, but one of the core components of East Amwell is the horse industry, which supports the farmers, which enriches the community, and that property has historically been when it was known as the air park, used for trails and horses and up and down and all of that. There are trails around the country club that's going to be joined into that, so hopefully there can be a network, because we've lost Thompson Land access, and so the 75 miles that the Gardners were integral to putting together has become gutted. So what goes on or doesn't go on the air park is critical. It'll always be the air park, sorry. The particular complaint from the resident was that there are cars parking on Wurtsville Road, right there where there used to be a road going up to the top of the air park in the lake, a dirt one from way back when. People parking cars there, and if somebody comes to try to get into a little narrow area with a horse safely, it's difficult, especially if there's cars crowded together. And you could go in there without there being cars, and you can come back and find yourself sort of trapped on it. So what they do with access and parking and all of those things is critical. The land was also historically used and maintained by the Amwell Valley Hounds, and then they were sort of booted out because dogs chasing a coyote or a fox or whatever, but never catching it, was not consistent with their vision. And I think it's critically important that they come down and hear from the community, and that the county be brought into these discussions, because it was county money that was involved, I believe, as well as East Amwell. Wurtsville Road is a county road, and there are safety issues. And we've got to do whatever we can to maintain and have access to trails and land that is paid for with our tax dollars, rather than something that goes on in a bubble up in Far Hills where people don't really have a knowledge of or an interest in this. How their deer management's going to operate impacts the adjacent farmers, people who live there, and what they get. There are low impact ways of providing parking, but they haven't explored that. And I think if you involve the county with this, and the commissioners who have come into it, and the county planning board, then there might be more of an opportunity to get the mule's attention, as they used to say down south. and there be a collaborative process rather than just go forth, do what you want to do, and to hell with the community, because there needs to be a dialogue, even if you have to schedule a special meeting where the community can come out to get a date that will fit their needs as much as East Amwell's. There would be a lot of support in the community and a worthwhile benefit to it. This all underscores the need with the zoning that we do in our master plan as we go into the Amwell Valley section of it to incorporate trail easements and access and safety measures for horses and horse people to use, because then the community would work with them to mow and maintain the trails, which cuts down on the erosion and things in that regard. You know, it's not a one size fits all. It has to be collaborative, and hopefully somebody's not going to get hurt. The person who called me was well into their 70s and still riding, bless their heart. But squeezing in between cars is a safety issue for everybody. And when you fall down in your 70s from a horse because there's been something going on, you go splat instead of boing. And so the safety of local residents and the people who have to live with it across the street is important. Because the last thing we want to do in East Amwell is have a bad taste in our mouth for the preservation of anything, because we need to maintain our character. That's it.
Thank you.
I creep back to my corner.
Anybody else like to say anything? Well, I'll kick it over to Dante in a minute, but I wanted to thank everybody for their input, and I know Dante will go back to NJCF with these concerns. Our next township meeting will be, besides reorg and the last one, is January 9th, so we are hopeful we'll have a representative here at that point.
I think it's the 11th.
The 11th?
The 9th is a Tuesday, right?
Oh, sorry, then the 11th. So, like I said, I hope we'll have somebody here from NJCF then. And NJCF does do a lot of good work. I mean, they do. They preserve a lot of land. I'm disheartened it didn't go better right now, but I'm hopefully that we can reach a point where the residents have input and are happy, because it is good to, like Francis said, preserve the land, keep it rural.
Yeah, I guess the two things I want to say that to end tonight is, first of all, thank you for coming and sharing your information. We will make this the beginning of the dialogue. We will have it on the next township committee meeting, as Jenna said. Also, it's a great thing to have so much preserved land in our township. And I'm confident that by having a good dialogue, we will get to a place where we'll get concerns met. That's my intention, and I feel confident that we'll move in that direction. So, thank you all for showing, and we'll
Thank you.
continue.
Good. Okay. So we're going to move on to our second special discussion, which is the emergency medical services. I know Mike and John have really been the committee and liaisons on this. I know the township released some information that we were given from Amwell Valley. So we just want to kind of address everything, because obviously emergency medical services are very important. So I'm going to kick it over to Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you everybody for coming. A
Yeah.
lot of you folks look like you're here interested in that, and we have our professionals from our Amwell Valley and our surrounding towns. Last couple meetings we talked about the history of how we got to where we are, but I'll jump back to the last month. And if our professionals maybe can move up front, it might be helpful so we can engage in a dialogue when you're ready. On November 6th of this year, John Mills and I met with leadership from Amwell Valley, leadership from Flemington Raritan, leadership from Hopewell, and leadership from Lambertville. It was at that meeting we were notified by Amwell Valley that they weren't going to be able to provide first responder services in East Amwell Township with an ending date of January 1st. It was a detailed discussion on what that was going to look like, but ultimately the squads were going to decide how they divvy up the territory, and so we had coverage because Lambertville, Flemington, and Hopewell have been coming in East Amwell probably forever, as long as they've existed. So it wasn't new territory to them. They've been mutual aid partners for years. It was at that meeting the decision was made by Amwell Valley that they couldn't provide the first responder service. That was told directly to the committee by the president of the squad and the chief of the squad. We had a detailed discussion about East Amwell Township releasing a statement to the public as reasonably soon as possible so we can keep the community updated. And Amwell Valley had indicated that they would also release a statement. It's now my understanding through some conversations that Amwell Valley might have changed their position, but I'm looking to have Amwell Valley address the change of positioning with the community and the committee, and I think Mike is here to start talking about that possibly.
Yeah. Anyway, Mike Grankowski, I'm the current president, treasurer, and past chief of Amwell Valley Rescue Squad. First off, I want to thank everybody here that's here to support the squad. I want to apologize because I was pretty much me personally that threw that plan out there, which I had come up with that plan 2 years ago, because this has been an ongoing problem, and Patrick, the past chief, was coming to meetings and explaining, we're covering some of our calls, but not 100%, and it was like, I guess the public looked at it as white noise. Everybody was like, yeah, everything's fine. And nothing was happening either community-wise or with the squad. So our mutual aid partners were looking for a written plan. I had that in the, in my briefcase, and I threw it out there at that meeting, and that sparked what generated a bulk of this, and I want to apologize for that because it caught everybody off guard, including my squad. I've already apologized to them. But what I did was I lit a fire under everybody's butts because the support for the squad has been phenomenal from the community. The support from the squad internally, I mean, we've had our best 2 meetings since that meeting. So, and they've gotten together at a meeting right after that, and they discussed what we could do to start covering times. So they came up with this plan to cover weekends. Initially, I put it up as a trial from back then up until January 1st to cover 36 hours every weekend from 6 p.m. Friday to 6 a.m. Sunday. And so far, I mean, they've done a phenomenal job. Week before last, they covered all of the calls in East Amwell plus mutual aid calls. So that's pretty much all I have. Thank you for bringing this up. I'm going to turn the floor over to Chief Paul Hutchins, and he'll fill you in from here. Thank you.
for that.
Thank
Mike.
you.
Thank you.
Paul Hutchins, East Amwell resident, current chief of the Amwell Valley Ambulance Corps. As far as that meeting went, again, like Mike had said, we've had an enormous amount of support from the residents, from our own members, and we have had multiple meetings with our membership as far as how to provide a better service, because unfortunately we don't have drivers or EMTs that can provide a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service, and we haven't for a long time. We have relied heavily on our mutual aid partners, which is why the discussion started while Patrick was in the position. Unfortunately, this was kind of dropped in my lap, and I've been doing my best since I took over the position. We have struggled. We have not been able to provide the service to the residents that we felt was necessary. So that is why we've kind of reorganized, and through discussions with our mutual aid partners, I have been in contact with both Flemington as well as Lambertville and Hopewell in this agreement of a Friday 6 p.m. through Sunday 6 a.m. coverage. During that period of time, we have had a crew in-house, so we are not scrambling for calls. We are not delaying response time during that period of time. And then outside of that window, if we can get a crew together, we are still trying to staff an ambulance, but we're not relying on crews. And our mutual aid does understand that if we do have a call, they may be requested into the territory. We haven't had an issue with that. They have all been very responsive. I've talked to, again, the chiefs as well as a few of the members, and they're happy that they have a timeline as to when to expect a call into our territory, rather than are we going to have to go or are we not going to have to go. This is a trial. Again, like Mike has said, we've been doing it since the weekend of Thanksgiving. We've answered every call during that period of time. 2 weeks ago, we ended up with 6 calls in a 36-hour period, which is unheard of in this area. We've handled calls in Lambertville, as well as last weekend we ended up in Raritan Township's territory to assist them with a motor vehicle accident. So it's been, in my opinion, helpful, and it's been good for our residents, and it's improved our response time during that period. So if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to.
So no, thank you for that. I guess what my questions are, and I appreciate it, I think I'll speak for myself. I want nothing more than to see a viable Animal Valley Rescue Squad. But that leaves me with concerns, right? Because we've had this conversation before with past chiefs, and this isn't a new problem for East Amwell, right? It's a new problem. It's an old problem, right? Which I have the letter that was generated. It looks like it's going back to 2019 that these concerns have been coming up, which I'd be happy to pass around. And I think this is a good plan. I don't think it's between us and the squads. I think it's up to the squads to decide if that works for them. My concern is from the main 2 squads that back up East Amwell is Flemington and Lambertville. They've been asking for this for, and they'll speak for themselves, but a while. And now Mike's apologizing for something that I don't know that you should apologize for. I mean, you know, this is probably a good thing that this created, that we may have a viability here for Amwell Squad. I have no interest in seeing Amwell Squad going away. I have concern because it was told to me, and hopefully you guys can clear this up, that there was a meeting in Amwell Valley where you guys voted to dissolve the squad. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
There was no meeting to dissolve the squad. There was discussion of it, and it was tabled because we did not have enough members to have viable input.
Okay, so do you speak for the membership here tonight?
I speak for the bulk of the membership, yes.
Okay, so if we had some kind of plan in place, and maybe, I don't want to say in writing, but maybe you guys could guarantee we could do this for 6 months and make a certain percentage of the calls, so we don't continue to kick the can down the road. Because my biggest concern, and I speak for myself and my peers, we've had this conversation, if our partners go away and you guys can't handle the calls, what do we do?
I mean, the call will be answered.
By who?
The way that dispatching works is if we are unable to answer the call, it would go to mutual aid. At a period of time, if mutual aid does not respond, it then goes staffed. So another agency would get dispatched. Depending on who is staffed at that point in time would depend on who would respond.
But so for my, let's say 28 plus years in police work, that could be a long time, right? If
Correct.
it goes to, what do they call a third alert or something like that, that could be a significantly long time.
Correct.
So that's the only reason why we're at the table here, to make sure that our partners stay with us. Because if we don't keep our mutual aid partners with us, the next option for East End will be maybe to pay a hospital service, which is, you guys have looked at this before, I understand, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And traditionally, if they bill, let's just say it's 600,000, maybe 700,000 to staff an ambulance here in East Amwell, and they can only generate 300,000 in billable calls, we would be responsible for the other 300 or 400, right?
I don't have those numbers, but
But probably how it works.
I believe so.
So all of us here in this room have an interest in helping you guys stay viable. I just need some assurances so I can feel comfortable that our partners are going to stay with us in this plan. And I think there's been some concern with communication over the years, and I think we can all do a better job with communication, including myself. I think all of us can. So that's why it's important to me to have a plan in place, and we'll give our partners a chance to speak. And I see you got other members here. I think your deputy chief is here, Mike is here, because the deputy chief came to a meeting and said he wasn't even aware of any of these conversations. So that's communication, right?
Correct.
So we got to work on that, I guess. He did, and I know you're here, Joe, but I know you mentioned response times. Flemington prepared the response times. They're here for anybody who wants to see them for the last 2 years. They're all pretty similar. I don't know if that's any surprise to anybody, but Lambertville, Flemington, Amwell Valley, and Hopewell, if they responded to East Amwell, they're all in the roughly 10-minute mark, Dan? Is that what I'd be looking at? And he could explain a little deeper. So I'm not concerned about response time. I'm just concerned about if they're going to stay with us.
And through the conversations that I've had with, again, Chief Hoffman, Chief Strauss, and Chief Reed, with this plan in place, and when I did speak to them, I did explain to them that this is something that we would be looking at as a trial. They were all supportive of it. Again, since everything has happened with the announcement and through the support of the community, we have gained 4 members.
Okay.
Since then, we have 2 additional members attending EMT school next month and 1 finishing next month. So we are hopeful that this will improve. But we have been, at least I have tried to be transparent with them since taking this role.
And it's a thankless job. I'm sure it is. It's a hard job and it's thankless.
And it's not something that is new. And it's not something that I plan on sugarcoating. We are struggling. We don't have the members, unfortunately, to provide the service 24/7. And that is why we are relying on our mutual aid.
And I can appreciate that. I think this is probably one of the first times, though, that we as a whole are being honest about that. You know, in the past, when these meetings started, the past chief said it's fine as long as he's here, and then he wasn't here for whatever those reasons are. So that's where it leaves me the concern. Like, are we going to be back here next month with Flemington and Lambertville saying it's not working? Like, you know, I want to deal with it to deal with it.
At this point, the intention of the members is not to let that happen.
And I hope
We
that's the
have
case.
been, again, we've been able to staff every weekend since Thanksgiving, and we've been able to answer every call during that window of time.
Okay. Does you have any?
Just one thing, Paul. In the meeting that Mike and I attended, there was some discussion about tightening up the township map with respect to ensuring that our mutual aid partners were assigned to calls closest to their community, right?
Correct.
To their vicinity. Have we worked on that at all with the county? Because the county essentially is our dispatcher. So where do we stand with that?
So I have reached out to our communication, our county dispatch, and I did send them an updated list prior to that meeting. I emailed the contact I had, and I haven't heard back from him. I can follow up. I have not done that.
If you need help, let me know on that.
Thank you.
So, and we're not trying to put you on the hot seat. We were prepared tonight to move forward with the plan that we left with on November 6th. So that's why all of our partners are here to address the community, and they're going to still be, well, I don't know the math, but 36 hours out of 7 days a week times 24. You probably can do that in your head, but it's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
What is it, Jenna? You know, don't get your calculator. She knows because she's not going to tell us. But it's a lot of hours, right? So they're going to handle probably 90% of the traffic to begin with. So I think that I don't know, maybe it's not 90. I don't want to put a number out there and it be 89%, but whatever. They're going to handle a bulk of it. So it's important for them to get a chance to talk too. And it is my understanding you guys have had conversations about this.
Yes,
And it looks like it works. Do you, Gary and Dan, do you want to come up and engage in the conversation, and then make yourselves available if anybody has any billing questions or your experiences on how you think this is going to work, if this is going to work for you guys, and Kevin is here from Lamberville. Sky is a commissioner from Hopewell Borough. It's a commissioner position, right? Okay. And you're welcome to have the floor too and have a conversation. Not you, I was talking to Scott. But you're welcome.
My name's Gary Brewer. Currently the president of the Flemington Riot Rescue Squad. Been a volunteer with Flemington for 39 years. Dan Jankowski is one of our paid employees. He's been with the agency for 23 years. He's our operations supervisor, kind of supervises the day-to-day operations. We've been in an agency in our current form since 1952. We actually started in 1929 as part of the American Legion. That got reorganized in 1952 to be the squad as we are today. In 1999, when I was chief, we hired our first employee because of the volume of calls and the inconsistency in handling those calls at that time. Currently, as of December, we have 86 active members. 66 of those are volunteers. We have 20 paid staff members. 5 of them are full-time working different shifts, and we have 15 part-time people as well. Of those 86 members, 77 of them are emergency medical technicians. We run 5 ambulances that are licensed and inspected by the State Department of Health. We have 2 heavy rescue vehicles, a high water flood rescue vehicle, 2 boats, an off-road ambulance, and 2 utility vehicles as well. We staff 2 ambulances every day from 0800 or 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. 1 ambulance is then staffed from 10 o'clock to 8 o'clock the next morning. When we say staff, there's always a 2 EMT crew because we're regulated by the Department of Health. We have to have 2 EMTs on. We have members in training that may ride on the call with us, but the crew that staffs the ambulance is going to be 2 EMTs. We respond directly from the station 24/7. That fire you mentioned on Thanksgiving, we rolled 3 ambulances, the rescue truck, and our off-road ambulance to that fire with 13 volunteers. So 1 paid staff and 13 volunteers. So, we were dispatched on the initial alert for that call. Hopewell also responded an ambulance to assist with that as well. So our EMTs and our ambulance are equipped to provide all of the advanced treatments that EMTs can provide, including Narcan for the opiate overdoses, epinephrine for allergic reactions, CPAP devices for severe respiratory distress. All of our ambulances are equipped with automated external defibrillators, and currently we have 2 Lucas CPR devices with a 3rd one currently on order. Just to give you an idea of kind of the difference in the call volume, in 2020, in the middle of COVID, our call volume actually went down because nobody wanted to go to the hospital. And that was pretty much just statewide. We answered 2,727 calls. 21, it went up to 3,059 calls. 22, we answered 3,413 calls. And this year, as of the 11th of December, we had answered 3,047 calls. So our response time to all calls, the average response time from time of dispatch to time on scene is 6 minutes and 40 seconds. The state Department of Health compiles the data for response times for the entire county. The county average is 18 minutes. So we're kind of proud of the fact that by using the in-house staffing, our average response time is about 6 minutes and 40 seconds. The other thing that's kind of unique is last year with 3,400 calls, we used mutual aid 28 times. And that's 28 times too many. None of them were our first call. They were all cases where it was 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or even 5th calls, or when we needed additional ambulances beyond what we could staff, like for motor vehicle crashes or fire scenes and things like that. So in the last 3 years, as a matter of fact, we have not missed a single one of our dispatches as a primary call. Our staffing, with the staffed ambulances, our volunteers are required to do a certain number of hours a month. Since I'm old and been there for a while, I only have to do 8 hours officially. But the members normally do 24 hours a month, and staff they put in their duty time. They have to be at the station. They attend their meetings and drills just like anybody else. Sometimes on a given day, the 2 ambulances are staffed by 4 career people. Other days, it could be 1 paid person and 3 volunteers. It's any combination. Dan handles the scheduling. We have time slots that people sign up for, and if there's any open time slots, we pay personnel to staff those spots. Okay. A lot of this came down to, like I said, I was chief when we decided to hire the first paid staff. In 1999, some of the old timers then thought that I was destroying the squad because we were volunteers, and I didn't care, because if my parents had a heart attack, I don't care where the ambulance comes from. I wanted an ambulance at the house, and the excuse of we're doing the best that we can just didn't cut it. Along like what the president and the chief said, we've been going to meetings now with Amwell Valley for the better part of about 2.5 years that we've been trying to work out the solution. The problem that we have is we cover our jurisdiction 100% or 99.8% or whatever the call volume is with a 6-minute response time. The problem is then at 2 in the morning when we're responding to East Amwell to cover a call, now our ambulance is out of our coverage area, and because of just the way the geography works, sometimes our ambulance winds up going to Princeton Medical Center or Hopewell or one of the outlying hospitals. We're lucky because the hospital's in the center of our town. So we have a quick turnaround when we transport somebody. Most of our calls are 30 to 35 minute turnarounds, and we're available again. And when we're out of service now for an hour and a half, that impacts, now if there's a call in our primary, now we're waiting for people to respond to the station, and we kind of get behind the 8 ball on that. Now, that could happen. God forbid there's a bad accident at 31 and 202 here, but the difference is there's been no consistency to it. What'll happen is we'll hear the call go off. They may not be on dual alert, so they're alerted initially, and then they go through the re-alert, and then we're dispatched. So we're already 7 minutes behind the dispatch because they didn't crew up. So now we're responding. So some days we're up, in the past, especially over the last 2 years, some weeks we're on dual alert, some weeks we're not on dual alert. And our thing is, we try to plan everything to the nth degree. And we don't want to miss calls, we don't want to have a problem. If we know, it's 132 hours, by the way.
Did you do that in your head?
I did the math. Got a lot of fingers.
All right, so what's the percentage before you're done talking?
Yeah. So those 132 hours now that we're covering, if we're covering that portion of East Amwell that we're responsible for, we have to plan that. In 2020, we answered 45 calls in East Amwell. 21, it was 52 calls. 22, it was 63 calls. And in 23, it's already been 68 through the end of November. So we have to kind of just factor in that in the middle of the night when that call comes in, we've already started trying to figure out how we can financially afford to staff 2 ambulances 24 hours a day so we don't wind up short. Our issue is, why is that our problem? And we'll answer the calls, but our whole beef on this from the beginning is there needs to be a plan as to where we're going. And I understand it's cool to have a trial right now, but the problem is that trial is impacting, I can only speak for us, that trial is impacting, and the situation is impacting our operations from day to day. And basically, as Mike and Paul have said, when we walked out of the meeting on November 6th, we started planning right away that January 1st, we're going to have additional area that's going to be our primary. And that's where we really started kicking around how we were going to do the 2 ambulance staffing. And Chief Hoffman didn't agree to your plan. You told him what you were doing. And so there was no meeting, it was a phone call.
It was a phone call.
Okay.
We discussed
So-
it, and I asked his opinion, and he felt that was
Well, he's certainly not gonna tell you, don't staff your station, but 36 hours a week doesn't really take the burden off of us, okay, or any of the other mutual aid, okay? And we had a decision, I thought, that we walked out with, that we were planning for, and then we started finding out, okay, we got the phone call, because he called me, I guess, after your phone call, and then we started hearing different things. We saw the last township meeting here, which some comments were made about our squad by the deputy chief, that we were, it was a money grab and a territory grab. If we don't have to come to East Amwell ever again, we're good, okay? But we're not looking for more area, but we're also not gonna refuse to respond. We're not gonna not come to a call when we're requested. And knowing that, it kind of puts us in a bad position because we don't really have any way to negotiate that. If we're called, we're going. And it's kind of really puts us in a bad position because we still have to answer to the municipalities that serve as our primary response area. So for the most part, there was an agreement in place with the president that he had kind of graciously, back in the beginning of 2023, I guess it was probably March, he had agreed to compensate us for when we were alerted into East Amwell Township, because we do bill for services. We bill for patient transports, all right? We bill insurance companies, and if there's any questions, I'll let Dan kind of explain that, because he kind of oversees that. Our billing money, though, is used to pay for the paid staff, because as everybody knows, Title 40 doesn't mandate EMS, which is kind of funny in today's day and age. You gotta have, police, law enforcement, you have to have fire service, but nobody requires you to have an ambulance. So it kind of puts us in a weird spot, because again, with our towns that all contribute money to our operation, Mike had said, we'll compensate you guys for the calls to help offset your costs for covering these calls. That one of the things that we've done since this all started was we used to only staff 2 trucks till 6 o'clock, and then from 6 to 10 was just 1 truck. So we already added the second truck on the from 6 to 10, because that tends to be a busy period of time, a busy period of response for us. So we kind of took offense to the comments, and I think it was kind of just it's a lack of information, but we kind of took offense to that our response times were going to suffer in East Amwell Township. We're 4.5 miles from the township line in East Amwell, and our response times were as good or better than Amwell Valley's, because we're in the station ready to go. So I think those comments were kind of out of line. And as far as, like I said, as far as territory, we're not looking for additional territory. We have more than enough. And
So I think you've been clear, and Tom and the others, we're not doing you any favors by asking you to help us.
No.
And you've spoke incredibly eloquently and professionally about this problem, and I couldn't possibly explain it the way you did. But I think that's why it's incredibly important for the folks, the committee, everybody to hear what the real problem is. It's not helping you without a plan. And that's what we're drilling down to right now. That's what we're getting down to. And I feel bad if Kevin has to speak after you, because he's never going to be able to explain it as well as you have.
Well, it's not so much that. The video of the last meeting kind of made us seem like we were like the bad guys, like we were being bullies about something. Nope.
Yeah, I've been clear. You're not begging us for this work.
No, and honestly, the bottom line, like when you read our mission statement in what we do, we respond, for calls for the sick and injured, wherever we're dispatched to. We're not going to say, you guys can't get your act together, so we're not coming to East Amwell. We're just not going to do that. That does nothing towards the patient care end of things. Ultimately, all the agencies are there for the service to the public. We're not going to say we're not coming into East Amwell. That's ridiculous. But at the same time, there needs to be a plan. And we've been working on this for 2.5 years, and the plan's just kind of changing all the time. And we can't plan it, and I don't like that. OCD is a blessing and a curse. I like to have everything kind of laid out nicely so that we can cover. My goal is 100% of what we're doing, 100% of our dispatches we cover. And, we're close, but we We have about 0.5% to cover for those second, third, fourth calls that we crew up, so.
So the position Gary's laying out has been my concern all year, right? You could see probably a little bit of frustration, and he speaks about it very eloquently and professionally. And I thank you for that, because I think it needs to be shared that this is a level of stress that's been going on a while, and how are we going to fix it? And I think that's why we're all here. So, you guys have any questions of Gary?
So how do you feel about this plan that's, I don't know if it was agreed to or proposed or what right now? I mean, where do you guys stand with it?
It sounds like a good idea, like a good start.
Okay.
But, all joking aside, there's 132 hours in the week that we still have to cover, or the other agencies have to cover.
I came up with 168 hours. How many did you come up with?
168. If you
ahead.
take 36.
All right, yeah.
It goes
Yeah, I
into
did the
go
calculator,
addis.
but I didn't know what you said. Go ahead.
Yes, so it's a good plan. If they have new members, the problem is we go through the same thing. I hate to admit it, I'm like the oldest active member in terms of years of service, and I'm weird because I don't have any hobbies. But the reality of it is, we get 10 people join. If we can keep 1 or 2 of them beyond 3 years, we're ecstatic. And because a lot of our members are young, we go through the same problem, and I think these guys will attest to it as well, that over the summertime, everybody flies by. Everybody's great because all the young people are home from school, the shifts are all covered, and then the end of August comes along, and then it goes back to the way it was. And then our paid staff hours go up because the kids go back to school and take leaves and stuff. That's just the nature of it. My concern is going forward, we still need to sit down as a group, and hopefully with your guys' involvement, to just kind of say, all right, this plan's going to continue. We still need to talk about in the interim, and maybe this expands to the point where they're 100% back on their feet. Terrific. Then we just go back to life as it was. But until then, I think we still need to address the idea that the agencies involved need to be compensated somehow for providing the coverage. Because for whatever your donation is yearly to the Animal Valley Squad, they're covering 36 hours of that 168-hour week. The rest of the squads are still covering that. The box locator or the address locator for the county, that needs to still be addressed because, again, when you factor in the distances that are involved, the distances aren't always the best factor. Coming down Route 202-31, we may or may not be able to exceed the posted speed limit to get down the highway. It's a little safer to do that than it would be on a back road or on a county road to get down to the municipality. So coming into the center of Ringo's, it's a better shot for us coming down, or for Lambertville coming up 179 or 202, than it would be, let's say, from Hopewell coming through the back roads to get up into some of the area. That all just needs to be nailed out. I don't care who takes it as long as it just makes sense. And then that
We haven't done that yet. That hasn't happened, I guess.
well, there's still some anomalies to the dispatching, and the call will go off, and I'm like, we're closer to that, why, and be that as it may, I just want to make sure that the ambulance that's closest gets there fastest, and and that's the bottom line ultimately for all this. Like I said, we're not going to not say we're not coming, but I want to sit down again as a group and let's put this on paper so that we're not dealing with, if somebody leaves, if somebody's not present, myself included, that we know what the agreement was, what everybody, signed off on, and how we're gonna move forward. And
Are you
if this
guys
is
okay with that?
If this is a trial, let's put a time on the trial. Let's give it, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, and then let's see what it is and revisit it at that point. Because again, we're seriously, looking at increasing our staffing just to cover those additional calls, mainly and it's not because of the volume of calls per se, it's the fact that it puts us out of service longer.
When you mentioned the 3,500 calls, is that 3,500 times somebody's picking up the phone saying they need an ambulance, or does that count if you send 2 trucks?
That's just
3,500 times?
That's 3,500 calls. Somebody called 911 and said I need an ambulance.
Okay.
Our runs, we call it, we're dispatches, and then we have runs,
Right.
and we call it apparatus responses. So if we get a big
What
accident.
was it when we first started? 1,000, 800?
When I started in 1985, it was a big deal that we
How about in the
broke,
police department?
we
What
broke
was it?
1,000 calls.
Yeah, around 1,000 when we first came to the police department.
Yeah. And
What
now, now it's, last year was almost 3,500.
What? How?
So-
Why? More people?
Oh yeah, our area's gotten ridiculous, and the call volume is pretty much tripled. And if I don't have those numbers in front of me, but our total runs, like the number of apparatus that responds, well, like at that fire, we had technically 5 units respond to that fire. So that was one call with 5 responses. So we had 3,500 calls last year. So we get a report of a motor vehicle crash, it normally gets 2 ambulances. And if it's reported serious, it gets 2 ambulances and the rescue truck as a standard response. So if we get a cardiac arrest, we usually send 2 ambulances. So that would, we did 3,400 runs, we probably did close to 4,000 apparatus responses. So.
Does anybody have questions of Gary, by the way, before, go ahead. You can, yeah, go ahead.
Appreciate all you do. Francis Gavigan, East Amwell. Appreciate all you do and all you try to do. And very much appreciate our local guys and what they've been trying to do. We're part of your mutual aid. What other communities are you mutual aid for? Are you one for like Delaware or Franklin or Reddington or whatever? That will pull you out of your area.
Primarily, it's the adjacent towns. So our squad covers Flemington Borough, Raritan Township, about somewhere between a third and a half of Delaware Township, and on a mutual aid basis, we go into Reddington Township, Clinton Township, Franklin Township, and we've been to Hatboro, Pennsylvania. So if we're called for one of our specialty services, we go. The reality of it is, we total the calls by municipality every month, and most of those mutual aid calls to other towns are 1s or 2s because they had a bad accident and they called for our rescue truck, or they had a bad accident and needed an additional ambulance. Generally speaking, we're not covering other towns because they're not answering the calls. That's what's been the issue lately with coming into East Amwell, into the Amwell Valley service area. So.
Do you get support or mutual aid from Somerset County or, there are borders?
Right.
Not just in Hunterdon, but Somerset and I guess Mercer is the other end of our township, I don't know.
We go to Somerset County, if we're requested. Last month, I think we went to Hillsborough twice. And and Hillsborough, if we request them for an ambulance, well, now Hillsborough is covered by a private ambulance service, but by Rob Boyd Johnson. But if we request an ambulance from any of our mutual aid partners, like the other night, the motor vehicle accident on Old York Road that Amwell Valley responded to was a 3rd call for us. At 11 o'clock at night, we have 3 calls at once, and so Amwell Valley assisted us with that. Okay. The same thing will happen since the hospital's in our town. If we're on a 2nd or 3rd call and an ambulance is clearing from the hospital from Clinton, they may take an assignment that comes out as a 4th call for us, just because everybody's acting at with the right intent, trying to get the ambulance to the scene the quickest. So we do receive mutual aid when it's necessary. Like we said this year, I believe, up until Dan looked up the number for me the other day, it was 29 times that we've gotten mutual aid. And it was all times that we requested additional ambulances or calls that were beyond 2nd or 3rd calls. So.
I understand the financial stuff that's involved here. What I've also noticed here, we don't give much money to East Amwell's rescue squad. Would you, as the township moves into budget season, the same way your towns do, Raritan and whatever, would it make sense to include a certain amount of money, some money, or negotiate for our mutual aid partners to help support what their expenses are on our behalf and to help share the load with
So that's
them?
a conversation that this group had on November 6th, that
throw in there.
No, I understand. Yeah, the number, you know, they're looking at if we're able to continue to give what we've been giving, splitting it up amongst the mutual aid.
Well, the reality is with the number of people that are moving into the county and all the building going on in Raritan is numbers are only going to go up. Our still being a rural town, especially even with this preserve and you're getting all these people going up there. If somebody gets hurt, they fall off a horse and they go splat up on the mountain and it's February and snowing, that's a time suck. And the reality is going to be people need to have the care. So I think, what is it that you get from the township, 25,000 or something like that?
25,000.
Well, that's 25,000.
Yeah.
We get from East Amwell.
So
That's
I
how
would-
we, just
That's-
so everybody's aware, it's how we came up with the number initially at the meeting.
Mhm.
We took what our number of calls, our max number of calls was, we divided it up, and it worked out to come out to about $50 a call.
But let me
So-
ask you, Mike, if like, and I don't want to get into a bunch of hypotheticals, but what Francis is talking about, is Amwell Valley even equipped to go up into the trails and get somebody off that fell off a horse,
Yes,
or
we are.
would that be Flemington that would come anyway in a situation like that?
No, we're.
Because you guys are equipped for like mountain rescue and everything, aren't you?
Well, we could do
Well,
high angle rescue, technical rescue, but yeah, that little mini ambulance that we have, we got that on a grant about 13 years ago. We don't use it often, but it comes in very handy for farm accidents, for trail things, hunting accidents. It's based on a Polaris ATV chassis, and
Yeah,
it looks like
yeah.
a little baby ambulance.
And guys, these guys have been coming here for forever. They've been coming
Right.
into East Amwell forever. It's
And
not
if it
new.
was something that we couldn't handle, we would let them know right away, depending. And we've had calls where we couldn't get to where they came out.
Dan, do you break down how many are actual residents or motor vehicle accidents that have nothing to do with Raritan, East Amwell, Hunterdon County? Do you have like a number like that? I'm asking a lot. Gary might do that in his head, but like
No, but at times, especially with the motor vehicle crashes, a lot of times they're not residents.
Right.
And
which is a
and-
huge drain on it's a lot of service.
Oh,
for
sure,
motor vehicle
Raul.
accidents.
Think about how many crash reports you do that the people were just passing through.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's difficult to put a number on that. You'd have to track each individual call sheet. You know, like I said, if sometimes motor vehicle crashes, you transport 2 or 3 patients and you have several refusals of treatment. So you have actually 6 call sheets that you'd have to go through to track the residents versus non-residents.
So let me ask this group here, Gary, Paul, Kevin, what's the best case scenario for you guys? This plan that you guys have, if they could work with it?
If they could work with it, again, we're hoping to be able to expand our service beyond the 36 hours, but at least in the interim, doing the 36 hours, that would be beneficial to us, and it's something that our members feel that we can do.
What's the worst case scenario for you, Gary? For Flemington Raritan, as you speak on their behalf.
We would have, we would staff 2 trucks 24 hours a day to make sure that we could not only cover the area that we're responding to in East Amwell, but also to cover our primary consistently. And that's just a financial burden to us.
Mhm.
The whole thing with if people understand it, and if there's specific questions on it, Dan's the man for that. But the way the billing works is, we bill insurance companies a fee that we recover from the person's insurance company. Because a lot of people like to go, oh, we're volunteers and we don't bill, and that's terrific. Yeah, but that's the only part of the process that you wouldn't expect to get a bill from. Your doctor doesn't do it for free, you don't get a free x-ray, you don't get a free aspirin in the hospital. So when we started paying people, the municipalities and the fund drive didn't increase suddenly to pay for the staffing. So we didn't want to bill, but that was how you offset the cost of staffing. And the majority of the revenue that comes in from the billing is used to offset what we're paying out each year. Our operating budget's over $1 million a year, and we pay $170,000 in insurance every year. You know, so the billing revenue is what pays for our paid staff, and it keeps that operating. So if we had the bottom line is, if it didn't work out, or just to cover the balance of the hours that they're not covering, we're probably looking in the next 6 months, you know, really trying to figure out if we could staff the 2 trucks 24 hours a day. Because we don't want to be in a position that it doesn't matter where the call is, because it could happen that, the call could be in the southern end of Raritan Township and they could want to go to Hopewell. But the reality is, at 2 a.m, I don't want to be in a situation where it always happens. You get the minor call that ties up the ambulance, it doesn't matter. And I say minor, it's like literally, I twisted my ankle. Takes the person to the hospital, and then you have a cardiac arrest. And then it becomes a critical thing that now everybody's scrambling from home and responding to the station. We don't want to be in that position, So realizing that our responsibility is to provide EMS coverage to our primary, in order to do that effectively and still cover the portion of East Amwell we'd be responsible for, it would probably be the 2 trucks.
Do you have pretty good success having people come in from home when that ambulance is tied up?
Well, like right around 5 o'clock when I texted you what time the meeting was,
Yeah.
was because I stopped at the station to meet Dan and I got sucked into going on the 3rd call. Okay, just
Why
happened to
didn't
be,
Dan go?
that's it. Just there's no rhyme or reason to it. I wish I could predict it and go to that magic ball, but we had 3 calls in 15 minutes. And Dan stopped teaching the CPR class he was teaching, and him and I got in the ambulance and went to the call. So because the other 2 ambulances were already out. So it at 2 a.m, it's a little sketchier. It takes more time because people are coming from home. But we still have a good group of members that will respond to those second calls, or anytime that we get any of the requests for any kind of specialty service, the EMTs that are staffing the ambulances staff the ambulances. If it's a request for any of our special equipment, everybody's coming from home, or work or wherever they're getting out of.
Yeah.
So I think your explanation was extremely helpful to me, the committee, I think, the audience. Kevin, do you want to add?
Sure. Can I ask one other question before you speak? So, in terms of how it works for a patient, so you've mentioned insurance. So, do you accept whatever insurance a patient has, and what do you do if a patient doesn't have insurance? Are there some people who don't have any?
So the process we use, it's called a soft billing process. The insurances, most of them are accepted as long as the insurance has some sort of ambulance coverage. It'll cover part of it. Usually it's based off the Medicare rates and such. If the patient doesn't have insurance, or if there's a balance left over to the bill after the fact, we're required to send 3 additional bills to the person individually. And then after that, it doesn't get pursued further.
And what's the type of insurance that might have a coverage for ambulance? Is that someone's
Pretty
health
much
insurance?
any insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, private health insurances, Blue Cross Blue Shield, anything like that.
Car insurance covered for an accident or no?
What was that?
Does car insurance kick in if it's an accident?
Yeah, if it's a motor vehicle accident, the car insurance would cover that. Covers it in that aspect. Workers' comp would cover it if it's something work related.
Thank you for that explanation.
The other thing that's kind of unusual is, 250 some odd calls, that we've answered in the town. The people have gotten a bill. I don't know how many complaints you've got that people got a bill, but your residents have been getting a bill from the hospital for the medic service, the paramedics, since 1987. When our ambulance or Lamberville's ambulance and the medic truck both go, in order to simplify the process, we have an agreement in place with the medical center that the people only get 1 bill for ambulance service. And then the hospital gets their part for the mobile intensive care unit, and then we get a portion of it to offset our costs for transport.
Thank you.
I'll just interject. Kevin Snyder, President, Lamberville Rescue. I mean, Gary and I've been doing this as long, and organizations are very similar. The only minor nuances, we are dual state, so we go into Pennsylvania, so our area not only is it West Amwell, Delaware Township, into part of Hopewell Township, but also, we do New Hope, Salisbury, Upper Makefield, so we have a humongous area. We are not as blessed with as many volunteers, unfortunately. Maybe someday we can. So for us, it is predominantly career staff. We do as well have 2 crews on during the day, and then 1 overnight. Unfortunately, our transport time is much different because our calls are an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on, and we go all over the place. But regardless, so to have an ambulance out of our area is fairly normal. So our second call coverage is not nearly as coverage as Flemington is, simply because of proximity there. But the same thing, with all that career staff, and the billing covers majority of it, does not even cover all of it.
Are you a fire district, or you're just donations and billing?
Lambertville is, but we are not part of the fire district whatsoever.
So the rescue squad's not, but the fire department is? Okay,
Correct.
so you're not, it's not a tax base?
No.
Okay.
Not whatsoever. No, we do have municipal support, but it's minimal in, when you look at the scheme of the whole budget, by all means, so. We started with our paid staff in 1982, 83, somewhere in that range, because we were having trouble getting coverage out during the day when nobody could sneak out of East Lumber anymore, or Finkel's, and cover all the calls, so. But we also fought the battle as a volunteer squad up until 2012-ish, I think, when we started to bill. And it got to be the point we just can't afford to do it anymore. And so it wasn't something that we wanted to do, but there's just no choice. You can't run a business when you don't have income. You have a lot of expense. So, and the price of apparatus and price of equipment just continues to escalate as well. So,
Does anything that was mentioned by our partners in Animal Valley concern you? Is that something you can work
I think
with?
that the key is consistency. Just like Gary said, the scheduling is already very difficult, and it's already, you have no idea when the calls are going to come. So you try to schedule accordingly to when the highest call volume is, but when you add additional area to that, that makes it even more difficult. I mean, when Stockton closed their doors, we took over that area, including the Bucks County side for them, and continued in Delaware Township. So we just continued to grow and up into Kingwood, into the bigger area. It's like, how do you staff for that? You just can't. You just can't have enough people on hand to do all the time. So our concern is, I agree. We don't need any more area. I'd love to see everybody survive and do well, but we just need it consistent. And if it's going to be, Friday or weekends, that's great. Do that all year. I'm cool with that. We know that. We can plan for it. It's just, it can't be, oh, we're not doing it tonight. And then we're all scrambling going, great, now what? Or we're going to get, our biggest concern is when we get we are the only, believe it or not, BLS squad in Bucks County at all. They're almost all paid ALS squads, so we're in high demand there, but we also want to keep our foothold, and the more calls we don't respond there, the more difficult that becomes. So if we're tied up in a mutual aid call elsewhere, that really, it's more difficult for us to deal with the PA side, so.
Understood.
Mm-hmm. But no, I think Gary did a phenomenal job explaining everything.
And these are some of the things that, John and I have already heard from
Yes.
being at the meetings with you folks. So I just couldn't possibly explain it as well as you did or as well as you are. And I can't answer billing, and I can't defend or comment on response times until you guys gave me the numbers. And I'd be happy to share this. Maybe, Dan, if you want to talk about some of it, or,
Sure. Yeah, I took the numbers for any call that happened in Animal Valley that an ambulance responded to, and just broke it down to the first ambulance that got on scene, and then just averaged that out for the year and who it was from. And it breaks down, if you use 2022 and then 2023 through November 17th.
we have a big sample size, several hundred calls, I think, as you're working with, right?
There was a few hundred calls in each month. I think total there was about 500.
Okay.
So if you totaled it, average everything out together, it worked out the alert to on-scene time for the first BLS unit was around 11, for 48 it was like 11.39. For Flemington it was 10.57, for Lambertville it was like 13.28. The Mercer County units was about 15 minutes, and then there was a couple oddballs in there that was like 4.5 minutes. The only thing that was excluded out of that, and that set of numbers, was the 0 response times, where it was 0 alert to on scene. There was like 7 or 8 of those, and those are usually like standbys or something like that, where you call on scene out of like the fair or something like that. So those are excluded out of there, but the response time, like you said, they kind of all.
If anybody wants to see this, by the way, I could circulate it, but some of it is in, I call it code, I don't know. Some of it's,
Yeah.
I read this stuff, but I don't know, some of it's not my language.
Does Hopewell want to come up and have a
Guy,
chance
do
to
you want to
speak?
contribute?
So Hopewell's here as well.
Thank you very much, brother. And I met
Thank
with
you.
Sky and the chief the day after Thanksgiving, actually. We had a conversation about his concerns too.
That wonderful night on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Hopewell's got, I think you're probably gonna hear similar concerns that these folks said, but.
Sky Morehouse, 1 East Prospect, Hopewell Borough. I've been a councilman in the Hopewell Borough President Council for over 20 years and a fire commissioner for over 30 years. My son started riding as an EMT at 16, and he's continuing to ride, so I sort of have an inside scoop. One of the things that I can say to you is that you're not alone. Hopewell Borough is in a regional arrangement with Hopewell Township and Pennington. And I don't know if you know, but the Pennington squad has dissolved in 2023. They ran just about 1,300 calls a year. They are not responding at all. We inherited some of that problem. The other thing I want to make sure that you guys understand, we will always respond to our call for mutual aid, but we cannot respond as a first call to your district. We have forces in our district, like Ewing and the township, that call on my volunteers, and we do not bill. The EMS is under the fire envelope, and they are part of the fire tax, at least ours is. We do not bill. We're thinking about billing because we're getting to that point where it's going to be a little bit difficult. We faced a substantial problem last year, and through the township have made a contract with Capital Health, and we have one ambulance, and Mike's numbers are absolutely right. The contract is for $600,000 for one ambulance. They offset $400,000 of that cost, and we pick up the balance, which is $200,000, but that's divided between three entities: Hopewell, Hopewell Township, and Pennington. So it's not that heavy a lift. East Amwell is sort of about the same call volume as Hopewell Borough would be. And that's where the rub is. We can distribute that hospital cost among the three municipalities, and it makes it easier. If you guys go out on your own, you're going to get clobbered. To speak to your volunteer problem, good luck. I have been working at this for a long, long time, and the ratio is about right. 10 interest, maybe 1 sustains. We are constantly working on volunteer efforts, and it's extremely difficult, and it's hard to find. And I have to admit, it really is, I can't do it. It's scary as hell to get in an ambulance with a stranger, I gotta believe. My son does it all the time, and you guys probably know Luke, but it is a very, very difficult job.
Mm-hmm.
Hopewell, and speaking with Eric Bird of Hopewell Township, we would like to help you as much as possible. We have learned a lot over the course of the last 10 years. We have solved some problems. We have hired a whole bunch of paid staff. And if we can help you in your organization trying to face what we've already learned, and Eric Bird has already said to me that he is more than interested in trying to guide you through these problems, because again, you are not alone. And that really is, we will continue to help you as much as we can through mutual aid. We cannot come into an interlocal agreement such that we can commit to calling on you. We just simply do not have the manpower to do that. And if I committed to anything, I would probably have a volunteer mutiny. Seriously. These guys, this problem has been banging around in our house for quite a while. It's not that I'm in a position to say you gotta solve your own problem. We're all in this together, and we will try to help you as much as possible, but we can't commit to a formal mutual aid agreement. We will still help as we can.
So I found our breakfast meeting incredibly valuable and helpful to me, and I think we may call on you for some guidance and advice as we continue to go forward. But I think your statements clear up, what Hopewell can contribute to this issue right now. And, I don't know if that's helpful or hurtful to Amwell Valley or Flemington, Lambertville, but now at least we know what Hopewell can do to help us, and that's helpful to me.
After hearing what I've heard tonight, it sounds like Flemington has the power, if you go, and I can't speak for them, Gary, I don't mean to speak for you. But the problem is numbers and funding. We can dump a bunch of money in, we don't want your money. We can't respond because we're looking south. I don't know if you know about the Scotch Road development, but the Scotch Road development is an entire another Pennington. And not a thing has been addressed as far as that problem is concerned. But the only way, listening, this is my first opportunity to listen to your conversations, is that it seems that Flemington, has the power where if you contribute, possibly you could man up, and as long as you pay for it.
Right.
I mean, with paid guys, and I think it might be cheaper for these guys in the long run than going to the hospital.
Sure.
But I can't speak for you.
And to that point, in the last 2 years, I didn't mention, like, we've proposed in the past to merge, become, one organization so that we can take them in and kind of just keep an ambulance here that would be part of our organization. And they wanted to keep their own identity, and I understand that. We offered to provide staffing during the day, but that was cost prohibitive because the billing volume that you would get just for patient billing doesn't offset the cost of the staffing. Because, go figure, after a pandemic, not a whole lot of people want to be EMTs. So you're paying more now for EMTs to keep them, keep them on your roster. No, we could certainly
But
work.
you gotta do
that
what
in.
you gotta do what you gotta do. So Hopewell Township stations 3 career personnel in our house during the day. And if we didn't have those 3 career guys, we would not be answering calls during the day. We just don't have volunteers during the day.
Yeah, I think clearly this isn't a unique East Amwell problem, right?
No.
And it's clearly not. It's nobody's fault. We love Amwell Valley. They have a unique and great history that we all want to see survive. It's just, what do we do from here?
You gotta pay for it. That's bottom line. It's just, we have been basking in the wonder of the volunteer effort for all these years, and it's becoming an obsolete model. I'm sorry to say.
I don't disagree with you. Gary and I have been having these conversations for 25 years, right? Like,
And we just have to deal with it, and we have to nurture the volunteers to offset as much as we can. And then we need to face reality with, we have an obligation as a set of community people to respond to emergency calls. We just do, even though it's not mandated by statute. And it's, at some point, somebody's gotta pay, and at some point, Hopewell is gonna have to start billing.
yeah, so Hopewell has roughly the same amount of calls, but you're on the hook for about 200. We could conceivably on the hook for about 400 in that scenario because of we can't spread it out from 3 towns.
Well, as an example for our call volume, I have the call roster here. In January, February, our call volume for EMS was 22 calls in a month.
20 to 22 calls. a month.
Starting March, when Pennington went down, we went from 22 to 40 to 60. We're now in the high 60s.
Did you have any warning they were going out of business?
Not much.
Nobody did. It was like one day they were open and the next day somebody said they closed. I'm like, what do you mean they closed?
And Hopewell's developing that whole section of town. Like, do they have you just mentioned that they don't have a plan in place?
Put a gun to my head. No. But we're gonna try, but that's just the beginning of it. The school district and the police.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't wanna take any more of your time.
No, you're helpful, and I will call on you again because you've been very helpful, and I think you can.
Eric Britt is also a huge resource from the township. I highly recommend that we can regionally meet and set up a subcommittee of groups of people of interest, and just, that is how we've been solving the problem in Hopewell region. We meet with the important people, we talk, and we figure but the problem, the only bit of advice that I can give you is you can't put your head in the sand. This is a problem that's going to continue. Volunteers are scarce, and you're just gonna have to deal with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's why, right in the beginning, Mike, Mike, that's why I told you, you owe no apology to anybody for you acting on behalf of what's right for the community.
This needed to be in front of the community. I appreciate everybody being here for this because they're telling it like it is.
And it's been helpful to me, and I've been entrenched in this for a year. Jenna asked me what I was doing today. I'm like, I'm thinking about Ammo Valley Rescue Squad. It's 24/7, you know, and how
You did say that.
It's sad, right? But you know, because I want to be helpful. But we heard all these problems. So, you know, what do we do as a community?
Right, well, in the ongoing discussion as we go through this period now, once I finish our squad building, we have a bunk room, I have shower room now, we'll have a new kitchen. More than welcome to whatever ambulance wants to staff in our house. We'll put our trailer out, we have an open bay. And, you know, I want to work together for the community. You know where I stand. You know,
And I agree with
see
that.
everybody survive and work together.
So so what I'm going to do for me, and I don't like to use the word reset, but so because we had this meeting in November 6th, we left with a plan, and that changed. So for our partners here, I want them to leave with some kind of reassurance and confidence that we're not going to see something posted again tomorrow that's different than what we're talking about tonight, right? We're all confident on that?
Yeah, no, this is where it's
And you
gonna
guys
stay.
are clear, you speak for the membership.
I speak for the membership, yes.
Do you
For
speak
the
for the
bulk
membership?
of the membership. We have a few.
Do you have to have a vote on this? Has this already happened?
So the vote to provide this period of time service has already happened.
That happened.
And that passed, and you guys
We have
could
a
speak for
pass
that?
vote on that.
Yep.
Because there may or may not have been some confusion in the past on who could speak for who, right?
Right.
Okay.
That was that's why I apologize.
Stop apologizing to me and this community, please. I've dominated a lot of time. Does anybody from the audience have any questions before everybody goes home? Go ahead, sir. Come on up. Well, I think I caught this gentleman's attention first, but you certainly can speak right after him.
Hi, my name's Ken Moser.
Thank you.
I'm an ex-councilman in the borough of Flemington.
Okay.
I was commissioner for the fire department in Flemington. I live in Raritan Township, right, literally East Amwell Township is 1 foot off my property line. Okay? The only question I do have, and I'll tell you, a year ago, I was mowing the lawn, I was attacked by a hornet's nest, and by the time I got to the hospital, I had flatlined.
Is that right? Wow.
Now, I never knew I was allergic to hornets, that, never bothered me. I've been told that in my case, and there's gotta be others like me, that the next time I get tagged, even with an EpiPen, I've got 5 minutes to get there. Raritan Township, as I said, believe me, good guys. But I have a rescue squad right down the road. Gonna be here a lot faster if you had somebody down there than Raritan Township is.
So I think one of the problems we're hearing, though, is they can't staff it.
Well, they can't staff it, but if you have a staff over there, if they're gonna staff it for even 36 hours, better than nothing, guys.
100% agree with that. Absolutely agree with that.
I can, as I said, I was a councilman, I understand the problems of finance, money, and so forth. I'm an insurance broker, I understand your problems with insurance. But,
Well, I think this conversation tonight, too, enlightened the whole entire community and committee on we're not alone in this and what other solutions have been. And
all I'm saying is 36 hours is better than nothing.
I agree. Yeah. Does anybody not agree with that?
No, we're totally in agreement with that.
We totally
Yeah.
agree with that.
Okay. That's all I wanted to say.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate that. How did you get to the hospital, by the way, with the hornet's nest? Ambulance or family car?
No, my son was a mailman.
He's raising his hand back there.
I was one of the mailmen in Lambertville and Ringo, so the post office. I had just gotten back to the office. My mom called me in a panic. We knew, unfortunately, nothing against Flemington. We knew that wasn't going to be fast booked it from the post office to the house.
Yeah.
Pulled it into the caravan, got him to the hospital.
Well, I'm certainly glad that all worked out.
Yeah.
Sure.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story too, and your concerns are valid, no doubt about it.
But as I said, and believe me, I do understand. It's head of administration for the borough, as a councilman.
Mhm.
So I do understand your problems. But in East Amwell Township, I grew up out here. Being a kid, I used to be the dummy that they would turn around and call out as a practice. I'd be up in a tree or something so they could get me to the tree and see how long it took them to get there. Now, this is 50 years ago. You know, they didn't have the horses out there at that point in time, but East Amwell Township does have a long history. And it's been a good history.
I agree. I definitely agree with that.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, sir, you had something?
Yeah. Frank Greek, 36 Lindbergh.
Thank you.
Been here about 25 years, give or take a few. Not exact, but I'm not sure. I listened to what went on. If I was in charge, the answer is pretty simple. You make a deal with Flemington. We become a subsidiary of Flemington under some set of rules. We get them to put an ambulance in the building that we have in our town, and we financially make it happen as a township. Our prime concern should be that we get our people to the hospital on time.
Agree.
If it costs us, by the way, I applaud the fact that you held the taxes at level. But I'll pay a couple extra bucks to get to the hospital on time. I mean, to me, that's as important as paving the roads and all the other things that you do. So, very simply, I know there are fiefdoms. I know that there are groups, and I know that it's hard to give up control of something. But the end game plan, the only focus we should have is on how do we get the residents of this community to the hospital when they need to get to the hospital in the least amount of minutes. And if it takes marrying the squads, if Flemington is willing to do that, they've got a real staff, and maybe we'll get some paid personnel living in our place that can either service us or Flemington or whatever. But we need to cut the number of minutes it takes from the time I fall down till the time they bring me to one of the hospitals. That's all.
Agree with you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I just want to be clear before we take more questions that based on, I know this was said, but just to reiterate, based on the information we have, no, and correct me if I'm wrong, no matter who responds, the response time is generally the same, whether it's Amwell Valley or Raritan or Lambertville or whoever. So I just want to I just don't want residents to get worried about who's responding. They all come around the same amount of time, as quick as they can.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Mhm.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Conover. I live on 22 Saddle Shop Road. I became an EMT. Absolutely loved it. So I decided to become a nurse. I am now a hospice nurse for Hunter Hospice. Absolutely love that job. I've been an EMT with Hopewell for about 7 years. And it's always about funding. It's always about volunteers. We're always fighting this, those two things. I proposed several times to Jason. I said, we gotta turn this around. It's not your responsibility, it's not your responsibility, it's the community's responsibility to start taking care of themselves. They're unaware of what's going on here. I didn't realize what was going on until about 6 weeks ago. The word's hasn't gotten communicated out there. Yes, there's Facebook, yes, there's those little trifolder things that people just overlook that gets put out at the carousel or out at the gas station. It's not enough. We need boots on the ground. We need to be out in the communities saying, hey, 4 minutes after a heart attack, it's all you have after your heart stops to go in brain dead. All right? Our response times are above that. We have to shake the trees, guys. We have to shake up the community and let them know how vulnerable they are. And they need to start doing something about it. Okay? We have this great voting district going on here. I come and I vote in November. This room's filled with volunteers because they're getting paid. Paid volunteers. I don't get it. Anyways, so I come here, I vote. I'm District 5 within the township. I was like, okay, so we have 5 districts. Let's start looking at this. If we can pull 3 people out of each district to be EMTs, EMT certified, no CPR, we can start saving lives a lot faster. Our response times would be incredibly small. We gotta start shaking the tree. We gotta start waking up the community, saying, hey, you guys don't know the predicament you're in. We gotta start doing boots on the ground, knocking on some doors. Put on your Class A's, looking sharp, because they wanna be a part of us, and wake them up a little bit. Do this for about a year, getting more membership. What's going on? Look at that. You have a group of people who like to spend time with each other. You got a group of people who like to share ideas and be a part of something. And before you know it, you might have like a community center. I have something that I gave to Jason, my 135-year plan. Okay? So it starts by building up, taking from your community, starting the community to not only take interest, but take responsibility for their own health and well-being, and their neighbors' health and well-being. We've got to start supporting each other. We can't just rely on 2 people to pull EMS together. By the way, can we please change the name? Amwell Corp. It's got to go. It's got to be EMS. Just a comment. It's so antiquated. I'm sorry. So that's really what needs to be done. We need boots on the ground and start knocking on some doors. Okay, I'm a nurse. We found out through COVID that when people were needing of counseling or anything like that, those Zoom calls did nothing for them. Going on computers, going on Facebook does nothing. It's a wash. It's passive. We need to be active. We need to get into people's faces in a nice way. In a nice way. Tell them very nicely, yeah, after 4 minutes you could go brain dead. Tell them nicely. Tell them also their taxes are going to go up significantly because we're going to have to hire a paid staff in a nice way. Okay? But we have to make people aware of what's going on.
Well, thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody? Go ahead, Francis. Oh, is that a hand or just? Oh, go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Kathy Greek, and I also live on Lindbergh Road. And for the record, we've been here 32 years. First of all, I want to implore all of you. I listened to the last council meeting. We avoid these things like the plague. So the fact that we're here, we're trying to express how near and dear this subject is to our heart. In the 32 years that we've been here, we've used the ambulance services 2 times for life or death situations. And a week after we closed 32 years ago, we had a massive fire and almost lost all the structures on our property. We are deeply, deeply grateful to the volunteers here. Sir, I applaud you. You told the story, you told it well. And if there's a way we can help, we will help. But please, at the last meeting, it was like the council said, this isn't really our responsibility, but we're going to get involved anyway. I'm here to say, please, please don't take your eye off of this. The problem has been ignored for far too long. And somebody said in regard to the Conservancy, like, I trusted them. When I found out this was going on about 6 weeks ago, I couldn't believe it. I trusted that my community was here and would call for help if they needed help. Ms. Conover, I disagree. The culture of volunteerism is a dying breed. And 36 hours, great. We need constant coverage. And I implore you, please do not take your eyes off of this problem.
So,
Please solve it.
and I appreciate your comments, and I will share with you, since I got here, I got this letter from those folks. We had a meeting within a week of me getting sworn in. Only reason I made the comment, there was a rumor going around that this committee was trying to close the rescue squad, and it needed to be addressed that legally our attorney gave the language. No, none of us here believe that we shouldn't be involved in this. That's, you said it yourself, it's gone on too long. It's been ignored.
Yes.
It's not a new problem. Nobody here came, it's going on, so this letter stated problems going back to 2019. I wasn't here in 2019. So we addressed it. John and I, Jenna, went to the meetings. We were right on top of it. We're trying to let the folks that are the professionals work it out. Gary had just told the community that there was a proposal a few years back to merge. Amwell Valley rejected that. Another gentleman or lady spoke about, or maybe even Sky, that they are big enough to absorb us for money. These are ongoing conversations. You know, we want to, and it's not they're only going to cover 36 hours. If they're not here, they're here or Lambertville's here. Okay.
But they deserve to get paid for their services. They do.
Well, they want to be they're billing, and we're working out a compensation for your time at this point. You know, we had that conversation on November 6th, and I agree with you. I wish volunteerism wasn't a dying breed. It just is. Mrs. Conover, is it? I love for that to work. As you've heard, I'm not saying no. Of course, we'll try it, but you've heard a gentleman from Mercer County. Well, you're on the squad. I mean, is it working in Hopewell?
We haven't done it yet, that's the problem.
Okay.
But it is working in Hopewell.
It is?
Because we are balancing between paid and volunteer.
Well, as I think Lambertville and Flemington are. You got some paid. Yeah. I think there's an open conversation if Amwell Valley could bring a hybrid system in, kind of like Flemington started, kind of like Hopewell is. Yeah, we're here at the table. It's a big table. You know, everybody's welcome at the table that I'm at, because I don't have all the answers. We're trying to keep this with you folks. And my greatest concern was we had an arrangement. That changed, and I don't want that to happen again. I want to keep the communication open. My phone's on. Paul, you can call me anytime. You know that. We discussed some things about taking the social media isn't the place to air this grievance. It's here with us in public. We're never going to respond to that. So let's work this out. Let's figure out a way forward. I think Dante's been involved at his level and had some good things to say about a meeting you attended. So.
So I guess where does that leave us right now?
It leaves me doing a lot of the talking. Me and Gary do most of the talking.
So I'm sorry, does anybody else want to speak from the public? Francis?
Yeah, Francis Gaffney still. I think the hybrid model to where maybe during the week when we have fewer volunteers, that there is some financial support from the township and the taxpayers to assist Raritan. Also, logistically, the placement of our squad is conducive to shorter response times if there's a bay opened up and a staff person during the week or whatever there, you're getting compensation, because most of the calls, you know, are the idiots from, Pennsylvania or New York who come here and go splat, discover deer, don't follow traffic signals, and things like that. So there is a benefit for Raritan and their response times, or even Lambertville, to work with East Amwell to capture that gap window beyond the 36 hours, you know, without having to be subsumed or submerged. You can have mutual aid and mutual autonomy, but with an agreement. But the reality is going to be, when you do your budget this year, you're going to have to come up with more money to support this service, however it is distributed, not take money from Amwell Valley to give to someone else, but to add to and to see if somehow or other some of the fire tax money can get directed towards providing this support, because there's a lot of overlap between the fire and the EMT, but again, maintaining autonomy, but you're gonna have to pony up for it to save lives. And from what I heard, Gary, you know, you might be willing to have something closer for the Raritan. I mean, it's a quarter mile or maybe a half mile from the Antelope Valley Squad to where that gentleman got stung with the bees, to where there could be a timely response. There's so many more people working from home that are adults. The model of going to get kids and grooming them up, and then they go to college, and then you've invested a lot of money. We need to get, from what I hear, you know, adults who are home on their computers working, who can pop out the new modern farmer model. It used to be the farmers would go out there and they would support the squad and the fire company. Well, now it's got to be, you know, the yuppies or whatever the millennial term is, to get off our butts and go and support. I can't physically be an EMT, but I can drive like a rabbit. If you want to, you know, and things like that. And we need to work with the township website and information to support these identification, grooming, and education of volunteers, so it's not all on just Amwell Valley. If you're giving courses in Flemington, an Amwell Valley volunteer can hopefully do it. If there is a cost per call that would help fill the gap, then we could budget for, well, you know, we do 400 calls in mutual aid in East Amwell. Well, if it was $50 a call, then that would be X amount of dollars that would help you or would help the Amwell Valley.
So just so you know, Francis, Mike has already agreed to pay Lambertville and Flemington when they come in. They've been paying since we got involved, half a year now.
Whole year.
Yeah,
Whole year.
so
We started first
that's
quarter.
been helpful. It's $50 a call.
Yeah, that's a good number.
And it was based on some kind of logic. I
It
forget.
was based on the $25,000 that
Yes.
we get divided by the
Calls.
max number of calls
Yeah.
we've ever had.
Yeah, so we're there. You know, it's a gentleman's agreement right now. But I mean, after tonight, like the mayor said, where does this leave us? I mean, it's going to leave us with a lot more conversation. But I've heard a lot of things from a lot of different folks, and it's been extremely helpful for me. And I would suggest our number one priority, which has been since I got here, why we went to the table with these folks, is making sure we have an ambulance. Because if we don't engage with these guys, they weren't necessarily talking the way you had hoped, right? Am I accurate or inaccurate on that? Right, which is why when you guys reached out to me, I said, let's have a meeting. Mike brought his crew to the table, you brought your membership to the table, and Lambertville did the same thing. So I don't want anybody leaving here thinking that we think we shouldn't be involved in this. Or I'll speak for myself. I think we should be 100% involved in this, whatever that direction is. We have a lot of...
If they're paying them out of the money that you give them, you need to give them more money to help support the future, because there aren't fewer people moving into Hunterdon County. There's more, and it's not just in the Amwell Valley, so, you know.
I think it's
no
helpful.
Tiki, no washi, so welcome to budget season.
Does, Mr. Wolf?
Hi, Rick Wolf, 21 Rynearson Road here in East Amwell.
Thank you.
First, Mike, you never have to apologize for anything. There's no resident in East Amwell that I'm aware of that does more for the community than Mike. During the years I served on the Township Committee and 3 years as mayor, he was a godsend. I mean, the phrase "shirt off your back" is used far too often, but in his case, it's true. He'll do anything for you. So thank you for your service, Mike. Couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, there was a study done a year or two ago throughout the United States about volunteerism, and New Jersey had the second lowest rate of the 50 states of volunteerism. I've told that to a lot of people. They ask me, well, why do I think that's so? At least here in East Amwell, I think volunteerism is largely dead, not because people's hearts aren't in the right place, they are. It's very expensive to live in New Jersey. It's very expensive to live in East Amwell. Most of the families, both parents work. They're working quite often more than 9 to 5. On the weekends, they're taking their children to various events. They're dealing with personal matters, grocery shopping, etc. In all fairness, they just don't have time to volunteer. You can go knocking on doors, and the second time I ran for Township Committee, I knocked on over 1,300 doors. You can knock on doors, talk to people. People have good ideas. You'll ask them about volunteering. They just don't have the time. And we can't just say, well, let's throw money at it. A lot of people in East Amwell are just getting by. I mean, they're literally living paycheck to paycheck. So they're not sitting on a lot of additional disposable income. As I said, it's expensive to live here. So it's not as though there's this unlimited pool of money. And for many people, $50 or $100 makes a difference here in the township. The issue of our rescue squad goes back to at least 2017, because when I joined the Township Committee in 2017, there were discussions about our rescue squad and the viability. Nobody questioned the value of the rescue squad, but people did question whether it was going to be able to continue on a volunteer basis over the long term, because volunteerism is dying. What I think I've heard tonight is when Flemington dispatches an ambulance, it has 2 EMTs at least. When we dispatch an ambulance, we can dispatch with a single EMT. If the response time is the same, and I have the choice of an ambulance with 2 EMTs versus an ambulance with a single EMT, maybe I'm just being naive, but somehow I think the ambulance with the 2 EMTs strikes me as a better proposition than the ambulance with the single EMT. From what I've seen during the period that I've been involved with this, we have too many chefs in the kitchen, and that's just not working. We have to make a decision. We have to decide who's going to be the chef in the kitchen. And to me, as the gentleman there said earlier, I don't see this as a hard decision. I think the chef is sitting right there. Okay. That's not to say that we should disband our Amwell Valley Ambulance Corps. We shouldn't disband them. But there has to be someone who takes charge. And I think the answer is very clear as to who should take charge here. And we'll integrate our ambulance corps to the greatest extent possible, and if they can staff the 36 hours over the weekend, that's great. But if they can't, then we have to be prepared to make the commitment to Flemington and say to Flemington, okay, go ahead and staff as you need to staff. And that just is what it is. So, might it cost us more money to get what we need? Yes. But people have to understand that we just can't start raising taxes significantly. That's going to create a real problem for a lot of residents, particularly our older residents, who, once they go on fixed income, have a real hard time staying here.
So I don't want to take your time, but I think that's exactly, I think you're hitting on something that we've been talking about the last couple of months, is the arrangement we have now with Flemington and Lambertville. It's a minimal cost. Mike, they're paying them $50 a call to come in, so there's not a tax impact, but what this is going to look like after today, or the next couple months, whatever they can do, that's a deeper and harder conversation, and I think you're hitting on the tone of what needs to happen, the right conversation, and it's a big decision for the committee, right? It's a hard decision on what the committee should do with this. There's no question about it, but I think that we got to continue to have this conversation. I don't know if tonight's the night to make a decision. I don't think that I was planning on that. But I think you're highlighting some things that you've heard here to the audience. There's concerns, clearly, right? I mean, a lot of our audience members or residents have talked about this, so, but I don't want to take your time, sorry.
I'll just conclude by saying, if you go someplace and there's free food, you tend to overeat. If you go someplace and you have to pay for the food, you tend to eat less. Given that it is incredibly difficult to get volunteers, it's incredibly difficult to keep the volunteers you get, I do think that we're going to have to switch to a pay model here in East Amwell. People are going to have to pay, or their insurance will pay when they call an ambulance. I think that will impose some self-discipline. How much, I don't know, but I think it will impose some self-discipline. I think a lot of people expect to pay if they call an ambulance. And working in that pay model may be a source of revenue such that we can throw more money at this without having to raise taxes. But just saying keep it free and raise taxes, that doesn't really work. Because throwing another $5,000 at this isn't going to solve it. And throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars is going to result in a meaningful increase in taxes. And there aren't things that there aren't other things that you could really cut. It's not fat in our budget. I mean, the one thing that I'm proud of during the period I served on the Township Committee is whatever fat was there, we cut it.
Yeah, thanks for that.
And to say,
You're not
well, we
making
can
this
take
easy.
money away from the roads, you have to have safe roads. We've had issues where our first responders have commented about the conditions of some of the roads. You have to have safe roads. We don't have beautiful roads, but we have to have safe roads. So there's only so much you could take away from other things. We cut the fat. Our budget is pretty much as thin as you're going to get it. We cut down to subscriptions. So I share this with you for what it's worth. I greatly appreciate the effort that you guys are putting into this, particularly you, Mike. I know you're putting a lot of time into this.
Thank you.
And, we've kicked the can down the road. I don't think it can be kicked down the road any longer. I know it's a big project, but I really appreciate the time you're putting into this. And I'll just say once again, Mike, thank you for all you do. You're great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like the air kicked on. Did the air conditioning? It's like
Yeah, it's
hot
like-
in here. Wait, unless it's just me.
So like my father said, my name is Andrew Moser. I live on Old York Road, literally on the borderline. I just wanted to state that, yes, of course, volunteerism is dying, but I think that's because we're all collectively allowing it to die. And what I mean by that is volunteering to me wasn't real until it was relevant to me. When my father almost died, it became relevant to me. I joined the Army at 36 years old, and then I ended up blowing out my leg, and I was just medically discharged. I was gone for about a month and a half. So a lot of stuff happened while I was gone, as I'm sure you're aware. But I think it's very important to realize that just sending out letters as a mailman, that stuff gets thrown away. People don't pay attention. It's easy to like and react to posts on Facebook because it's not relevant. And while getting up in people's faces doesn't always effectively work because it's not relevant and real to them. But I think if we allow East Amwell's rescue squad to disappear without giving it a real fight would be a disservice to our town, to the organization, and to ourselves. We need to make the commitment to revitalize this idea of volunteerism. We need to make it relevant to our community members, because not to say that there isn't enough time in a day. I was working full-time as a mailman, and then there was months where it was just Paul and I responding to calls, putting in full days at work, getting up at 2 in the morning, responding to calls as quickly as we could. So if you want to do it, you will. If you care enough, you will. And I think it's important that we do make that extra effort, whether it's knocking on doors, whether it's getting in people's faces, even if it's just saying, hey, this is an organization that is struggling. You don't necessarily have to throw even more money at it. You need to make it real to people. Because if it's not real to people, then it's just another thing that you can just ignore and push off to the side. And from what I've seen over my time with East Amwell and just doing this, I love this. This is why I'm becoming an EMT. Because helping people is near and dear to my heart. And I think it's, as your committee members, this is all near and dear to your hearts as well. So rather than going, and I think it's important to recognize everything that Flemington and Lambertville and Hopewell does for us. That's so important. We need to start making the need of our rescue squad relevant to everyone that we can, and say, even if it's 5 minutes of your time, if it's 10 minutes of your time, if you can volunteer any available time that you have. It's not always about money issues, it's about where your heart is and what you're willing to do and effectively participate in. And it's not for everybody. But we need to impress upon people the need. Because without impressing upon people the need, nothing's going to change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, seeing no one else with their hand raised, I mean, I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure we're all in agreement. We want to do everything we can to make Amwell Valley be successful, as well as make sure our residents have coverage for emergency services. So I think what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Raritan and Lambertville is willing to give this a try for a certain number of months, 3 months, 6 months?
Yeah, I think, at least speaking for Flemington, I think at some point or another, maybe after the first of the year, we'll continue with this model, but after the first of the year, we need to sit down and actually put this plan in writing.
Okay.
Put an expectation as to how long we're gonna see if this works, and kind of figure out, because I have other parties to answer to as far as the compensation and so forth. We get that squared away, we're willing to work whatever we have to do.
I'm in agreement with that. Let's get, right after the first of the year, we'll get together.
Yeah, I mean, that works for me for now. If that it's always been if it works for you guys, for me. You know, we've taken a lot of input from the community, and it's been very helpful to me. And I volunteer for a lot of stuff. I coach. It's probably as many hours a week as I work. So, volunteerism is, like I think the gentleman said, if you make time for it, if it's important to you. But I'm not pushing back on we can recruit, but it's a very uphill battle, and we have an immediate problem to solve. So I think that we have to do what we have to do now to stabilize the situation. My biggest concern the whole year has been communication. You guys know that. Not necessarily with me, but with Gary, with Kevin. I don't know if you guys have new officers coming in January, and whoever they are, like, you got to communicate with them. I'm satisfied that Flemington can get here just as quick as Amwell Valley can get here. I think what the one gentleman was trying to say, if Amwell Valley was staffed, it would be quicker, and that may I'm not gonna that's a hypothetical, but that could be true, right? If it's a closer call and you're staffed rather than responding from home. We have the right people here. We're asking the right questions. I think we're pushing in the right direction. I think we take this 3 months at a time, a 3-month checkup. If we could figure out a way to make you viable, merge, hybrid, like Flemington started, this committee is going to have to do what's right for the resident of East Amwell. I think a couple people came up and said that, and ultimately that's what our responsibility is. Never is it not to do what's right for the residents of East Amwell. At least that's my viewpoint, and I heard that over and over tonight. So I'm always going to be applying my thought process with what's best for East Amwell. It's not a money issue, because there's not enough money I can give you to get people, right? Like, how much money can I give you to get people? It just doesn't exist. Right. So it's not money, it's people. It's a people problem, not a money problem. If it was money, that would be an easy fix, because you can write billing, donations, whether it be contribution from the township, but it's not. And maybe Sky from Hopewell could, I don't know if it's a money issue in Hopewell. It's not a money issue, right? It's people. Yeah, so our problem isn't unique, but we have the right people in the room. I've said this before, my table is big wherever I'm at. It'll only be me and, well, maybe not me, but at least 2 people from the committee, because there can't be 3 of us. But I know for sure what I can have happen again, at least to keep me engaged in this, is a decision made at a meeting amongst all the professionals, and then the next day say, no, that's not what happened. I can't have that happen again. All right, so we're going to start from tonight, moving forward, at least for me. And if that works for our professionals here, then that works for me for the moment. Sound good? Okay.
Very good. Okay.
Sound good, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Meeting in January would be ideal, so we can iron out the details.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get anything done before the holiday. I would meet sooner, but I just don't think anybody's going to be in a position to have a meaningful conversation before the holiday. And Christmas and New Year, it's probably not going to be meaningful enough. But we assure the community that you have somebody coming if you call 911. And what Mrs. Conover stated, yes, there's a response time, but I think that the first responders in this group can tell you that a lot of times emergency medical aid is the dispatchers are giving you CPR instructions, right? How many times did you been dispatched to call and say CPR is in progress? So people may be getting immediate care over the phone from a loved one. So, but that's always a problem. I mean, that's a problem with police. That's a problem with fire. That's a problem with EMS. So, but we're always pushing in the direction of making it better, right? I mean, it was said at a school board meeting I got to. We're not challenging the school. We can always do more. We can always do better, and that's how I feel about this too. We can always do better. It's not to say I'm challenging anybody. It's just we can always do better. But I've probably dominated enough of time tonight, and Linda's going to be making minutes, like going, what are you saying?
When did she not do that, Mike?
When did she not do that? Right. So I can move on from this conversation tonight if everybody else is satisfied with where we are.
They'll meet in January, and we'll have an update here in March, a check-in.
Okay.
So, yeah? Okay.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you for all the volunteerism you do and help our town out and everything.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate it, and I can't imagine doing what you guys do, so I'm glad you do it for me, so thank you very much.
Yeah, well said, thank you.
We still have other business, or can I go?
You can't go.
Dennis,
I can go?
you can use the restroom. Come back
Oh,
in.
God. I got a headache.
Saw pajama pants and a t-shirt. I thought it was metal.
That's the look. You know. So.
Wow, everybody was here for that.
Yeah. What would you? Not the rest of our meeting.
I thought they were here for you.
No.
5 minutes.
So I'm going to continue on with our meeting. If conversations want to go out to the hallway, please, thank you. I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. The only thing I did want to touch upon is that we are hiring a new DPW employee because one of our guys retired this summer. We are hiring somebody, so we're back to a 5-man crew. Been interviewed by Jason, and he's recommended him. Can I have a motion to approve consent agenda resolutions 23-147 to 23-153?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Dendis?
Mr. Dendis.
Dendis.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mr. Mills?
Consent agenda.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom?
Yes. Moving on to the bills of the evening. Can I have a motion to approve the December 14th, 2023 bills of the evening?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Dendis?
What's he
Mike?
doing?
Mike,
We're voting.
bills of the evening,
of
do
the
you
evening.
approve?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom?
Yes. Moving on to our administrative reports. The ones that we have are attached for anybody that wants to review them. Can I have a motion to approve the administrative reports?
So moved.
All in favor? We have correspondence. So before I open to the public, I know we have another meeting in December, but I believe this is Tara and John's last meeting for here. So I just wanted to say thank you both for your service here these past 3 years. I've enjoyed getting to work with you, particularly this last year. John's been really responsive when I've needed things done by text message and working with the state police, so I really appreciate that. And I'm really thankful I got a chance to know you because we have kids at the school, but they were different grades, so we didn't really hang out. But I think once we both kind of let our guards down, we had a really good working relationship, friendly relationship, social relationship. So I appreciate everything you did this year, and I know you're going to do great things at PTO, and we'll be seeing each other there all the times you're not rid of me. So I just want to say thank you both for your service.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say the same thing. I appreciate that John and Tara are working together. I think you guys have worked together. The whole group has worked well together, and I think, especially in today's age, people argue and fight too much. And for me, I was very pleased that we didn't do that with this group, and that as a result, I think we served the citizens, and the residents well. So I echo Jenna's comments and thank you both.
I talked too much already, but no, I feel the same. You know, what started out as it bumpy, maybe it turned out to be a good year. I think for East Amwell, for us, it's been a pleasure getting to know you folks, and we're not going anywhere. And I've actually told you guys I may rely on some, sounding board from time to time, and I could appreciate that. I think that what started out with some differences is, I think, for me at least, ending in friendships and peers and colleagues, and I hope that's I hope you guys feel the same about me. So, I don't know if you guys are sticking around on any committees or boards. I don't know if anything expires, but I hope you do. I hope you don't disappear. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Mike.
Wanna?
Go ahead, John.
Just a couple of words.
Don't ask me for that $2 I owe you for the beer.
I think I owe a
More
beer
like
too, actually.
Where do you get
Yeah,
$1 beer? He just drinking.
The Moose Lodge.
Yeah.
Where does he take you?
It's the trunk of a car.
So first of all, you know, it was a pleasure getting to know you, Tara. We were running mates. We didn't know each other, and I just have a lot of admiration and respect for you. You know, you're a mom, and you know, we're volunteers, right? We all juggle our schedules, and I think, you know, that you were a tremendous role model and example, and I think whatever you set out to do, you're going to be very successful at. Bev, I wish you the best of luck. I know this issue here today, I know you and Al both will, you know, tackle it with Dante and Jenna and Mike. Those of you that know me know that, you know, this position for me was just a way to give back. You know, I never had a long-term aspiration to be some local politician. Did a lot of things in this town, and I think, you know, I'm well respected by folks in this town. I believe that, and you know, I made this place my home back in, you know, the mid-90s because I started out in the schools, you know, teaching a DARE program, and I really got to love this community. And you know, it's a little gem. It hasn't changed much over the years, and I think we all appreciate the rural nature of our town, and I think we're all on the same page with what we're really, you know, what the vision is of what we want East Amwell to be. So, the best of luck to everybody, and you know, I know if you communicate the way I've seen you do, you guys will accomplish good things. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah, so I think John said it perfectly, and thank the three of you for your kind words as well. This past year actually has been really enjoyable, and I think Jenna, you summarized it really nicely in the beginning of everything that we have done together as a group of five, right? And we did not necessarily agree on everything, but we don't need to agree on everything, and we've done it in a really harmonious and respectful manner. And I think we've shown the town what can happen when people have different opinions, different backgrounds, but we're here still to serve our community and serve our residents, and that was our mission, and we did it together, the five of us, and I'm very proud of that. And it has been a good year. And John, you said it perfectly. You were my running mate, and now you're my friend, and I've so enjoyed doing this 3 years with you. I'm glad that our paths will still stay hopefully connected, and we will be able to stay in touch. I wish, you know, Jenna, Mike, and Dante, I wish you guys nothing but the best.
Thank you.
2 years and one more year or more, who knows, right? And it's been a pleasure to work with you guys. Keep it up, right? Today's meeting, I think, really shows that there's a lot of really important things going on in the community right now that matter to a lot of people who are here tonight, which is fantastic. Our attendance rate has really you know, taken a tick up this past year as well, which is fantastic, right? Even on a cold winter night, 2 weeks before a major holiday. So I think that's great, and you guys really have a lot of work ahead of you. And Bev and Al, I said this, you know, last month. I think the town is in great hands with both of you. I'm excited. I think you both have a lot of energy and passion and commitment to our town. So congratulations and good luck. And I'll see you on Back Brook Road where we're walking our dogs. And you can fill me in on how it's going. You know, I also wanted to thank Frank. It's been a wonderful past 3 years. Frank is a constant source of advisement, encouragement, sometimes just venting. So it's been, thank you, Frank, for your time and your energy. Linda, I'm so glad we hired you over a year ago. Is that right? You're like, what? I think you've been such a wonderful addition to the town and to the community and for all of us. So thank you for everything you do, as well as all of the rest of the staff and the DPW workers and everyone who is here every day serving our community. I want to thank our residents, right? 3 years ago, you put your trust in John and I. Hopefully we did you right, and we did some things that you wanted us to do. And I look forward to seeing everyone still around the town. And then I see that Linda is here, so you might want to do this too, but I don't think we could ever say thank you without saying thank you to our families for letting us go. And there's my 1/6 of my family in the audience right now. When we do this, we give up a lot of time to our families, right? And sometimes they come and hang out with us, and that's fantastic. And other times they're falling asleep in the car while you're trying desperately to get here on time, or you're late. So I just want to say a huge thank you to my family, and especially my husband Daniel, who's been bearing the brunt of this for the past 3 years. So it's been a lot of fun, and I wish you guys all the best of luck. And I'm not going that far. I'm going to see a fair amount of you pretty regularly, so I'll be checking in and happy to support in any way possible.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And you can take over my role as talking. You can do most of the talking.
So we are now open to the public. If anybody from the public wants to speak.
I know this person.
Hi, I'm Linda Mills from East Amwell. I wanted to thank Tara and John for volunteering their time to serve on the Township Committee and truly representing all of the residents of East Amwell. John, you have always given back to our community through coaching, teaching DARE as a state trooper, serving on the Board of Education, the Township Committee, and contributing to many causes and helping those in need. You lead by example, and it speaks volumes about your character and commitment to our community. Thank you again for representing and providing a voice for everyone in East Amwell Township.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your support, Lynn. I love you.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing no one else from the public, can I have a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
There being no further business, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Somebody second it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:37. Thank you, everybody, very much. Good meeting.
Linda.
Here, if you want one of these for your record, this is what we were sent in January. So you can get caught up on why this was an issue.
Well, it's been an issue forever.
Yes. I don't know about that, my friend. I did a job anyway.
Thank you.